And Artemiev also brings out his knight, pawn to c4. We are in the English opening territory now. And what is Artemiev going to do? He plays his pawn to e6. Going for the solid setup here. Will Nihal push his d pawn? Not really. He fianchettos his bishop with g3, but central play by black. I think Artemiev trying nothing too extravagant with the black pieces, just simply developing. Nihal castles it out, and black also castles. Now, if I am not mistaken, Nihal would play b3. No, he goes d4. It's Catalan territory now that we have with Nihal Sarin. And is Nihal going to play some main line? We are in the closed Catalan. Knight to d2, b6, and generally you put your queen on c2, but he goes b3, bishop b7, bishop b2, both sides developing their pieces. Nihal brings in the rook. Just look at how Nihal always brings all his pieces to good squares. That's one of the secrets of positional play. And there he just brings his pawn up one square so that the queen can settle down there. And the central tension, if you see, both sides do not want to resolve it. Nice move, queen e2, connecting the rooks. Now, if black takes on both central pawns, then the knights would take here and the bishops would open up. So it's very important for black to also maintain the tension, but it's not so easy to do it. So therein lies the big positional struggle, that should black take, should white take, and this can get very confusing for many players. In fact, even for Artemiev, as he burns his time over here, more than 30 seconds taken for this move. But for Nihal, he thrives under such situations. He understands them deeply. He knows what are the positional trumps that he has. And guys, always remember, in Catalan, c6 square can become very weak. This square can become a weakness if black takes and the knight comes here and then looking at that square. But of course, Artemiev knows all of this and would not fall for it. But guys, look at the time. Artemiev down under 2 minutes. He's taken more than 60-70 seconds for this. He takes on c4 firstly, and Nihal quickly takes it with his knight. This knight is happy because it can go to the e5 square. Later also look at the d6 square. The knight is pushed away with b5. But after the knight jumps to the central square, now the queen is attacking this pawn. So have to be careful there. I think a good idea here could be just to play a6 and keep the structure. Artemiev now down to 1 minute 30 seconds. He's taking a lot of time. Nihal has managed to get him out of his comfort zone. A mistake here would be to take the central pawn, because then knight takes knight and knight takes pawn would then unleash. Oh, he takes it. It's a mistake. And Nihal must now take the knight on d7. The reason for that is that so that he can take with the knight here. If he takes it directly, then the knight on e5 is hanging. Will Nihal see this? And also the time Nihal has is quite a lot. He has more than a minute on the clock over his opponent. Now, if you take back with the pawn, Artemiev would be very happy after a6, because this is a nice square for his knights. So it's very important for Nihal to figure out knight takes knight, then he takes with the queen or the knight, and then you take knight takes pawn, and then the c6 square is weak. And there you see it. Nihal doesn't miss such opportunities. Brilliant play here. Knight takes knight. And guys, you're going to learn something very special now. Knight takes d4. Look at this. 1, 2, and 3 pieces coming here. Artemiev is going to take. Yes, he takes on g2. King g2. Don't forget the pawn on b5 is hanging. So first of all, you need to save it. And Artemiev, if he saves that pawn, then the knight would sink into the c6 square. So not an easy moment for black here. And just like that, Nihal did nothing special in the opening. But I really liked this idea of putting the queen on e2. That was a very nice idea, connecting the rooks. And now the rook is on the open file. The knight is well placed. He plays a6. But don't we have this beautiful knight sinking into the c6 square? Also, in such endgames, one of the important things is that these two pawns are way weaker than white pawns on the queen side. So it often happens that black starts to lose that pawn. Queen a8 played, pinning the knight, unpinning here. The bishop comes out to f6. Artemiev playing this quickly. Nihal can play now rook to d1 to win this knight on d7, giving up his bishop on b2. But Nihal adjusts himself in the chair. It's very important for white to be accurate now, because yes, he's better, but materially not, just positionally. And such positional advantages can just wither away if you make 2 or 3 inaccurate moves. That's the reason why Nihal is taking his time. This is already 30 seconds invested on this move, because he knows that this is where he has to start pressing effectively to beat a player like Artemiev. Takes on f6. The knight takes it back, and now what does Nihal have on his mind? Has he prepared his next move here? He gives a check. King moves to the side, he chops the queen, rook takes, and as we mentioned, the pawns on a6 and b5 are weaker than a2 and b3. So that Nihal must take advantage of. He brings the king in further. So he's saying, my knight is well placed, my rook is well placed, and my king is well placed. g5, Artemiev gets rid of the back rank weakness and also starts expanding on the king side. He wants to play g4, gain more space in the position. And Nihal actually tells him, sorry, you cannot gain it. I'm going to fight on equal terms for the space there. The position is by no means over. It's a very, very complicated one, but Artemiev down to just 20 seconds on the clock, while Nihal also does not have too much time. This is going to go down to time trouble. Rook a7 played, attacking the knight on e7. Now the knight cannot really, if you go back to c6, then it blocks the path of the rook. So maybe just knight c8. Yes, that's what Nihal does, attacks the rook. The rook comes to the open file. Nihal now starts to attack the a6 pawn. You can't really go back and start defending there because the knight controls it. So the a pawn might fall here. He goes rook d2. He's trying to create play. h5 played, so that if you take, he wants to go g4, but Nihal defends it with h3. Nihal is now a pawn up. Fantastic play here by Nihal Sarin, showing positional prowess. Pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn. And what is black's counterplay? He moves his knight away and he wants to come to e5 with the check. Nihal plays his knight, in comes the check, king g3. You can't really take it here. The king is defending, so he plays pawn to b4, trying to prevent the white pawns from moving. Knight has come back, and can you take the pawn? Yes, he takes another pawn. Check. And now Nihal has to move his knight. Does he go up? Yes, he goes up. Knight d3 check. King comes back, and now white is 2 pawns up. This is amazing play by Nihal. He's 2 pawns up. He might lose one of the pawns, one g4 pawn here with rook and knight looking there. He comes back to e2, and Artemiev chops the pawn. Pawn to f4. If the knight moves, then knight f7 is hanging. This is trouble time. He goes king g8. So that if you take this knight, I'm going to take this knight. But Nihal sacks his knight on e6, winning another pawn. What a beautiful play there by Nihal. He's now 2 pawns up. And also now he has to convert this well. It's never easy in Blitz, because there can be mistakes with just seconds on the clock. But look at the confidence and calmness with which Nihal is playing here. This is why he's one of the best players in the world, respected. f7 pawn is hanging. Knight goes back to h8. He pushes the pawn, brings the knight to the center, and then pushes another pawn forward. Fantastic play here. Rook goes behind, but the pawn keeps pushing on, and the king starts to come in now. Look at the black's knight. It's absolutely clueless about what it should do. It has been completely dominated. The king is coming in, and Artemiev resigns. What a positional battle by Nihal Sarin.